Welcome back to another video. Today I have my Mortal Kombat, the new 2021 Mortal Kombat review / just talking about the movie. I have my brother here with me too.
Hello.
We both played a lot of Mortal Kombat, and we're not like super fans, but we know enough about it that we could tell what was good and what was bad. I have some notes down here. They're mostly in kind of like chronological order of kind of how the movie went, but not completely. So I would say overall, I liked the movie. I would want to see another one. Yeah, I heard it was supposed to be 3 movies in the series overall.
That's what I heard as well.
So I'm down with seeing 2 more movies because who knows, this could be the worst of the 3 or the best of the 3. You never know. But I'm always down to see more Mortal Kombat. All the fight scenes in the movie were really good. I had no complaints about the fight scenes. I would give the editing of the fight scenes a 7 out of 10. So there was nothing like wrong with it. There was nothing I would change. There was just a couple jump cuts here and there that were a little weird, but other than that, the violence, the blood, all of it was pretty good. Pretty much exactly what I was hoping for from a Mortal Kombat movie, because it's the one movie you can go over the top with the blood and no one's really going to care.
I definitely agree with that. There are other movies, like, you can't make a Street Fighter movie and have it all gory. I think the amount of gore that was used was pretty perfect.
I'll agree. I mean, I've watched a couple other reviews of the movie just to see what other people kind of thought, and the first 7 minutes of the movie definitely is probably the best 7 minutes of the whole movie, so I can see why they released the first 7 minutes for people to watch, because honestly, if you watch that first 7 minutes and then you watch the rest of the movie, it feels like that first 7 minutes is from a different movie. The actor they had playing Scorpion was really good. I think he looked believable. I totally bought into him as Scorpion. Seemed normal. Same thing with Sub-Zero. The actor that was playing him was really good. The costumes were pretty good, I think. Like, they weren't anything new or crazy, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're just a pretty good rendition of what their regular costumes have always looked like. What do you think? You think Scorpion and Sub-Zero were pretty good?
I like the actors of them both. The only complaint I have about Sub-Zero, I wish his costume was a little more blue. It's a little too dark for me personally.
I mean, they made Sub-Zero out to be kind of like the most evil guy. Like, he's basically second in command under Shang Tsung. And I don't know if I like how evil they made him, but that's just like a personal thing. There's nothing wrong with like how they portrayed him, because he's cool, that's for sure. No pun intended.
Ha.
The fighting choreography was good too. Like, all the fights are believable. All the people were obviously really well trained and probably have martial art background, and the new character Cole, he was kind of neutral for me. I don't hate him, but I don't like him either. He's kind of just like, I could take him or leave him. Like, if they improved upon his story and made him more likable, I could rock with it. It's not really a problem with me, but he wasn't a character that I was drawn to at all. I didn't really feel any kind of care for him, like, during the movie. Like, when his family's in danger and Goro's gonna kill them all, I didn't feel like, oh no, please don't kill his family. Like, I didn't know them. Honestly, at that point in the movie, I didn't even know if the young girl was his daughter or his sister or something. Like, I don't know if I just missed a couple little lines, but it just wasn't clearly laid out enough for me. And the other girl too, that was in his fight corner at the beginning of the movie, I didn't know if she was like his best friend or his girlfriend or his sister, or like, I had no idea.
I had no connection to Cole at all. Like, I didn't feel anything with him. And I feel like there could have definitely been a better protagonist for this movie.
So yeah, in this movie, how they get their powers is basically if you have this seal from the tournament, then you have some inner arcana, they call it, and everyone's is different. Like, Kano's is his laser eye, Liu Kang has the fire, and Cole got this weird body armor that makes him like indestructible. And I couldn't really figure out what was going on when he was like heating up, when he was getting hit, but I heard someone else say that like it's basically like the armor absorbing the energy, and then he can like use it or something. So he can like redirect like kinetic energy. So you punch him and then he can absorb that and then use it against you. And then he can also spawn those swords or like they're not swords, but you know what I mean, the things on his arms, the blades that he uses to cut off Goro's hand and then cuts his stomach open. The weapons were kind of weird. Don't hate them, don't love them either. Pretty much just how I feel about his whole character. At the beginning of the movie, after Scorpion dies and his body turns into fire and he goes into hell, that was all really cool. But I couldn't figure out if they were trying to replace Scorpion with Cole. Like, at the beginning, I couldn't figure out if Cole was going to be the new Scorpion or if he was just another guy kind of added on. And then when it got to the end of the movie, Cole doesn't even really get to fight Sub-Zero, like he kind of does, but not really. And Scorpion does most of the work. So that part was kind of weird because there was no real final boss that was a really difficult fight for Cole to overcome on his own. He needed the help of Scorpion. And I mean, I feel like Scorpion probably could have just done it alone. So it didn't really matter.
I 100% agree. I feel that Cole was not needed in the Sub-Zero versus Scorpion fight whatsoever.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was like, okay, well, we're going to have the Sub-Zero versus Scorpion right at the end. And then they were like, oh, crap, well, what do we do with Cole? And it was like, okay, well, we'll just throw him in there too. I think they did Liu Kang pretty dirty, in my opinion. The actor they picked was good. I liked the actor. He was like totally shredded when he took his shirt off. I just felt like the whole time they were making him feel really underpowered. And they made Kung Lao seem like he was the strongest one. The scene where Cabal and everyone shows up to the temple for the first time. And Liu Kang is there and he tries to defend against Cabal. And starts kind of losing, and then Kung Lao is the one that shows up and throws his hat. He teleports through the floor, and he's kind of like, it kind of looks like almost like he saved Liu Kang, like he wouldn't have been able to fight very well, even though he's the chosen one, and is like a descendant of the great Kung Lao, the champion of Mortal Kombat, but somehow he can't fight off Cabal on his own, which just doesn't really make any sense in my opinion. I thought Liu Kang's fire powers looked pretty good though. I thought the fire looked pretty decent. Like when he does the dragon, obviously it looks a little, because fire doesn't turn into a dragon, so it's going to look a little off. But as far as when he was just holding the flame in his hands, I thought it looked pretty good. Had no problems with any of the magics, like magic, arcana, whatever you want to call it. All that stuff looked pretty good. What do you think? Like between Kano's eye and the fire. Like, do you think all the effects looked pretty good?
All the effects of all the powers looked good. I like the soul sucking. I like the fire.
Yeah, that looked pretty good when he sucked his soul out. Or when he, whatever, absorbed his soul. At least they gave Liu Kang the fire dragon. Fatality, I guess is what it is. That was pretty cool. Like, at least they didn't really change anything of him too much. He does his bicycle kick, which is really cool that they would include a move like that. Kano also tries to steal what I'm pretty sure is Quan Chi's amulet.
Shinnok.
Oh, is it? Sorry, it's Shinnok's amulet. In the scene where Liu Kang is leading Kano, Sonya, and Cole through the temple, and it's showing you like there's some paintings on the wall of Shao Kahn. There's one of Goro, wasn't there? Goro.
I think there was one. It was Goro with the Great Kung Lao, defeating the Great Kung Lao.
Okay, yeah, there was a painting of Goro when he defeated Kung Lao. Nightwolf. In the background you see Katana's fan, and Kano tries to steal what looks like Shinnok's amulet. They don't really mention anything about it, which is kind of weird because you would not know what that is at all unless you're like a pretty hardcore fan of the games. But it's cool they had it in there. I guess I'm not going to complain that they're throwing in Easter eggs for the fans. The one thing I found the most weird about Liu Kang is that he states that it was his job to find all the Earthrealm fighters, but then they all showed up in the desert without his help at all. The only person that he found was Jax, and he found him after he was basically already killed. So he definitely wasn't doing a good job because they used Kano's connections through a pilot to fly them there on a plane, which I don't know how they knew where to go, but yeah, they basically just show up, and then Liu Kang takes him inside to speak to Raiden. And I'll ask you this first. What did you think of the Kano character?
Kano, in my opinion, was probably the best character other than Sub-Zero in this movie. He was hilarious.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kano had a lot of really good lines. He was really likable, like, for a lot of the movie. Like, obviously, until they show that he just kind of flipped sides whenever. But For a lot of the movie, I was hoping that they were maybe going to keep him as a good guy. Like, they were going to maybe do that as a change, because I would have been totally okay with that. I thought that would have been really cool if, for once, Kano maybe would have been a good guy or something instead. But in the end, you can kind of tell that they were setting up a whole arc for why, because in all the stories, Kano and Sonya are like mortal enemies. So this whole movie kind of sets up that for the next movie, Kano's probably going to, because he got stabbed in the eye with the garden gnome thing, he's probably going to come back with his cybernetic eye, and now they've both kind of screwed each other over, so now they're going to hate each other like they always do.
Yeah, in the usual timelines, Kano kills Sonya's partner, which makes them obviously hate each other. But in this movie, that never happens, so they don't really, other than Kano being like a criminal, Sonya doesn't really have a reason to hate Kano.
Yeah, not that much anyway. One of my favorite lines that Kano says, though, is when he's talking about the arcana, like the powers, and he's like, oh, I see, it's like a box of chocolates. You could get some shit, or you could get a fucking frisbee hat. Yeah, they definitely made Kung Lao seem like the strongest of all of them, though. Like, how he was pretty much winning all the fights, and he was the one training Cole. And when he does the fatality with his spinning hat, where he throws his hat into the ground, and it's like a buzzsaw, and he cuts the vampire chick in half, that was definitely the highlight fatality of the whole movie, I think.
100% agree. That fatality was awesome against Natara.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And it looked pretty good, too. And then the only bad thing is, though, is he pulls off his, like, sickest move, and he just gets killed, like, 1 second later. It's like, oh, look how awesome he is. All right, now say goodbye. Like,
that
in a
was
matter
a
of... Yeah. I think it would have been really cool if they actually left Kung Lao alive for once. Like, he always... Like, they killed him off once, and now they're just like, all right, you always got to kill him off right away. Like, I think maybe we could have at least rocked with him until the next movie. Maybe kill him off in the next movie or something, but I guess they had to get him out of the way early.
I definitely agree. It's the same thing with Jack's arms. No matter what happens, Jack has to lose his arms.
Yeah, it's like in every Mortal Kombat rendition, Jax has to lose his arms, and and Kung Lao and Sub-Zero, have to die at some point. It's like, it's inevitable. You don't know how it's going to happen, but you know it's going to happen. A lot of Easter eggs kind of sprinkled throughout the whole movie. Just little things like, after he beats someone, I think there's one where it says flawless victory, obviously fatality. When he's training Cole for one of the first times, Kung Lao, it says test your might, and that's pretty cool.
I believe when Sonya's in her junkyard house, on her wall, you can see, I believe, a picture of like an Oshtek, like Kotal Khan, a member of his race.
I didn't notice that.
That's just what I've heard. I haven't double checked. It's kind of dark in that trailer.
I think Shang Tsung was played pretty well. I liked who they cast for Shang Tsung. He plays like a really believable Shang Tsung. I heard some people saying they didn't really like the way that he looked, but I thought he actually looked okay. I thought he gave off like a kind of Chinese emperor kind of vibe, like with the costumes that he had. But yeah, I didn't really have any problems with his costumes, but some people were saying that he looked weird. Did you think he looked kind of weird?
No, I totally agree with you. He gave me the Chinese emperor vibes for sure. I was a fan of his design. No one can really live up to the original Shang Tsung from the original movie, but...
This is true. It's just like the original Liu Kang. You've grown so accustomed to that being Liu Kang, and then when someone else starts playing him, it's obviously going to be a little bit of like a shock to your system, seeing someone else play one of your favorite characters. But yeah, I thought he did a pretty good job. His voice and everything was pretty on point. It shows Shang Tsung in the beginning of the movie in Outworld, and they're just in some kind of like quarry or like a desert or something. And then when it shows them in Outworld again, they're just on some kind of like bridge. Like, that's the only complaint I have, is they didn't show any cool parts of Outworld at all. Like, if they wouldn't have said that was Outworld, you wouldn't have even known it was Outworld. You would have just thought maybe it was somewhere on Earth, which is not really the point of Outworld.
I definitely agree. The way Outworld looked wasn't the greatest. I think Shang Tsung should have been in his island, as what happens later in the movie, you see the pit, which takes place on the island.
Yeah, so they include the pit that's on Shang Tsung's island, but they don't really include, like, the island at all, which would have been a perfect place for Shang Tsung to be having all of his little meetings. But yeah, in general, I think the locations for this movie kind of fell a little bit short. I wasn't really thinking too much about it at the time, because, I mean, the first 7 minutes, obviously that whole part's good. The ending, it gets a little better when they start showing you some of the classic stages, which is nice. But when Cole fights Goro and they're just fighting at some kind of like farmhouse, that's kind of weird. And when Raiden teleports them to like the realm between realms, and it's just like that gray, misty area, like there's so many legendary locations that you could pull from in the Mortal Kombat franchise. Like how many? There's like 11 games or something at this point. Like you have so many stages and so many places that you could have pulled from that would have been really recognizable, but instead they went with really lackluster locations with really like nothing special about them. And I heard someone else say this about Goro. It's like Goro probably would have maybe looked a little better if he was in a scene that matched him better. Like it's kind of weird seeing Goro smash up like a Ford F-150 at a farmhouse. If he was like, you know, in the tower that he fights Johnny Cage in, or I mean pretty much anywhere like a cool outworld location, he would have looked more fitting and it might have looked a little more believable.
I definitely agree. In the original Mortal Kombat, Goro has his own stage. They should have just designed the location to look like that.
Yeah, I agree. Goro was another person I feel like they did pretty dirty because they portray him to be like way too animalistic in my opinion. Like I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for, but in the other movie that he appears in, Mortal Kombat 1, and in the games, he can speak fully. Like he can speak like a human being. Like he can have full conversations. He's a general. I mean, yeah, he's a prince and he was a general for Shang Tsung. So clearly he's done a lot of communicating and he runs armies. So he doesn't just only grunt and yell. He does say one thing, I'm going to break your spine, or I'm going to rip out your spine, to Cole when he's picking him up. They really should have had him have like at least maybe a couple conversations with Shang Tsung or something. And they should have probably leaded him up a little bit more. I feel like in the first movie, they tease him like a couple times and they really build up to the point that this guy is like really strong and you're not going to be able to beat him. Like it shows him beating like opponent after opponent after opponent, and no one can even get close to him or damage him. And then in this movie, the first person he fights cuts his arm or his hand off and then just kills him. Goro was the 9-time champion of Mortal Kombat. When it says they've won 9 times in a row, he won 9 times in a row. He defeated the great Kung Lao. He's defeated countless other super strong opponents that have probably fought in also multiple Mortal Kombat tournaments. And Cole, in his literal first Mortal Kombat experience, even though it's not in the actual tournament, he wins against Goro, which I just find strange. I mean, at the end of the movie, he does say that death is just another doorway or a portal or something, and you see the black mist that he uses to teleport kind of like encompass Goro's body on the ground, and also Cabal.
It doesn't show.
Oh, and Sub-Zero and Mileena, it shows them being kind of like rescued. So they'll definitely reappear, but I just think it was kind of a waste the way that they used Goro. They could have definitely built him up a little bit more. And then it maybe would have even been smart to have Goro and Cole fighting at the same time as Sub-Zero and Scorpion. So there would have almost been like 2 climaxes kind of going on at once, rather than having him beat Goro seemingly way too easy, and then the climax be the fight against Sub-Zero where he's like kind of not even really doing anything.
I think you made an excellent point. I definitely believe that the Cole versus Goro fight should definitely have taken place at the same time as the Scorpion versus Sub-Zero.
Yeah, like right at the end. That should have been kind of the last thing you're left with, like a big Goro fight. That would have been cool. Still don't think that Cole should be able to beat Goro, though, just in general.
Not at all.
Because another guy pointed out that it was like, even in the first movie, the way that Johnny Cage ends up defeating Goro is by like leading him to like the edge of the cliff and like tricking him and making him like fall off, because he knew, he's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to fight Goro, so I'm going to have to, like, kill him some other way. I like how they had Jax get his metal arms, Sub-Zero just freezing them and shattering them off, and then kicking them down in that building. That was cool. That was a different way. Because I remember in the old movies that Jax's arms were not, well, in Annihilation, I guess, and in the original one, his arms weren't, like, he didn't lose his arms, they just modified his arms, like, to make them stronger. But it's only been in kind of more recent games, and I guess this movie, that they've started to basically, they kind of changed the lore from he modifies his arms to he always gets his arms chopped off, or, like, what's a couple different ways he loses his arms?
He loses them to Ermac. He gets his arms ripped off by Ermac in Mortal Kombat 2011. I believe he gets them ripped off by Goro in a few times. Most recently in the movie Scorpion's Revenge.
I had no problem with Jax, other than the fact that, like, nothing he did really furthered the plot of the movie at all. I mean, it's not, like, necessary for him to further the plot, I guess, but he shows up to help Liu Kang, gets his arms frozen off, and then he's just gone for, like, a little while. Sonya has no idea where he even is, and then they find him already at the temple, and it was like Sonya finds him there, but she didn't even, there was no point where Sonya was like, oh my god, is he dead? Like, she didn't even know anything had happened to him, so it was kind of like, I don't know, like, they kind of almost wasted that, the fact that they could have kind of played up more the fact that she thought he was dead, and then they find him at the temple, and it would have been like, oh my god, but you don't really get that feeling.
For sure. Jax does not really contribute that much to this movie, other than he lifts a rock off Sonya at one point and defeats Reiko.
Yeah, and the Reiko fight, we should talk about that really quick. For one, kind of a weird character to pick, but at least they still used a Mortal Kombat character that already exists, so I can't really knock them for that at all. But they had them fighting over what looked like the pit, one of the most legendary stages in all of Mortal Kombat, and the whole time they were fighting, me and my brother were going, oh my god, that looks like the pit, I think it's the pit. And the whole time we're like, he's gonna kick him off the edge, he has to, like, there's no way you would put the pit in a Mortal Kombat movie and not kick him off the edge. And it gets to the end and Jax does his fatality where he just squishes his head, and it almost ruined how cool his fatality was that he did, because I was just so expecting the pit fatality, because it just seemed like obvious, like, why would you include the pit and not have that fatality? It's like, you go through all the effort to not have the one reason that you would go through all the effort in the first place.
Yeah, you design the pit, you include the pit, and then you not using the pit is a ridiculous addition to the movie.
Like, the only reason the pit is as famous as it is of a Mortal Kombat stage is because of the fatality. That was the whole reason people liked that stage, was because you could kick people off into the spikes. So removing that, it might as well not even be the pit, it might as well just be some random bridge, which for all I know it could have been, but I think they were trying to simulate the pit because it looked very similar. Sonya's character was good too. I think the actor they cast for her was also really good. She looks like Sonya. She was probably one of the best casting, actually, in my opinion, Sonya. Would you agree?
Yeah, Sonya was pretty good. I had no qualms with her actor.
Her back and forths with Kano were all really good. Reminded me of the typical Sonya-Kano relationship. Really, the only gripe I have about Sonya is that after she kills Kano and she takes his mark, because the whole movie, Sonya was the only one that didn't have the mark. Jax had a mark, Cole had a mark, and obviously the rest of them do. But she didn't have one. Through the movie a couple times, I don't know if I'm like teased, but they kind of lead you on to think that she's going to kill him and take his mark, which is what I thought was going to happen from the beginning, that Sonya would kill him, take his mark. Which, actually, now that I think about that, that's a good point, because if you have to kill someone to take their mark, then how would he come back with his metal eye?
Well, that could be the thing, that now it's the metal eye that produces the lasers.
Oh, that's a good point, right, that's true. Yeah, they could give him the metal eye to do the laser, because now that he lost his mark to Sonya, he won't be able to summon his arcana again unless he kills someone else with a mark, I guess. But yeah, after Sonya stabs Kano in the face with the lawn gnome, and then she appears, I think, to Liu Kang or Cole to help them with their fight. And she already knows how to use her arcana within a matter of like 5 seconds, which is just kind of weird because they made a big point, like the longest part of the movie, the middle section, I would call it, like there's almost like 3 acts to the movie, and the whole second act, the middle of the movie, is the training montages and everyone trying to figure out their arcana. They go into depth speaking about the arcana and how you have to be able to find it, and if you can't find it, then you won't be able to compete because you need more than just fighting skill in the Mortal Kombat. And it takes Cole like longer than anyone to finally find his arcana. It takes his family almost dying for him to like learn how to use it. And with Kano, it takes them almost having him kill someone over an egg roll for him to learn how to do it. And somehow she just automatically knew how to do it already, which I just thought that part was kind of weird. Just like a quick oversight, I guess. Like, it's not that important, but maybe they could have saved that for the next movie. Like, they could have had her just take the mark, help them out, and then in the next movie, learn how to use her arcana.
Yeah, even having her like learn in between the movies, I feel like would have been better than her just showing up and already knowing.
Yeah, because, yeah. It was something that I noticed right away in the movie. Like, as soon as she gets teleported by Raiden, and as soon as she gets teleported, that's the first thing she does, is use her arcana. It's like the wrist bracelets.
Yeah, she shoots pink energy from her wrists.
Yeah, she shoots like this pink energy from like her wrist, basically. And yeah, she does it right away. And I remember while watching the movie, I was like, what? How did she learn how to do that already? Like, she just got the mark like a minute ago, and she already knows how to use it, but whatever. Guess she just has natural talent. Raiden, honestly, I feel like the actor that played Raiden was a little bit miscast. He was a good actor, like I had no problems with him, but there was just something about him that he just didn't seem like Raiden. I don't know if it was just the lines they wrote for him, or the bad shiny eye effect they were doing at the beginning, or probably everything all put together that just led him to feeling not like the Raiden. I mean, he doesn't even have to be the Raiden from the first movie. Like, he doesn't have to be a white guy. He could be an Asian guy. He could be a black guy. It really doesn't matter. But he has to feel like Raiden, and this guy just didn't feel like Raiden at all.
I think they gave him a over-reliance on like his staff in this movie. In the games, he doesn't need a staff to shoot electricity, but it kind of seems that way in this movie.
Yeah, they kind of make him seem like you don't really get the feel for how powerful he is in this movie. Like, he should be able to... Like, he displays his... He doesn't have to beat someone up to display his power, but usually you get the feel that this is a very wise and very strong person, but in this movie, you don't really get that feeling. He just so happens to be the guy left in charge of making sure that they win the tournament. Also, there's the first scene that not the first scene that you see Raiden, because you see him at the beginning of the movie, but when Kano, Sonya, and Cole enter that little room when they're talking with Raiden, and Kano says something, and then Raiden lightnings him and like smashes him off the roof.
The one thing that irked me about Raiden is that they mentioned they called him an elder god, which Raiden isn't, only in like endings and once in Mortal Kombat 4, but then he stepped down from that role to defeat the Deadly Alliance, I believe.
That's pretty nitpicky. I mean, it's just like it's just the wording of it, but calling Raiden an elder god, it does kind of throw everything off. Like, because I mean, if he's an elder god, then he should have no problem stopping Shang Tsung from entering his temple without a little staff. If he was an elder god, he'd be able to probably literally do anything he wanted to. Especially because the elder gods are the ones that are supposed to be in charge of the tournament, because they're the ones who put the tournament in place. If he was an elder god, he definitely wouldn't be letting Shang Tsung break the rules and try to take over Earthrealm before the tournament had even started.
I totally agree.
He was breaking the rules. He could have just killed him right there. Mm-hmm. He could have been like, oh, you just broke the rules of Mortal Kombat. You're dead. Not to bring up Mortal Kombat Annihilation again, Shinnok ends up being killed in that movie by the Elder Gods because he tries to invade Earthrealm before the tournament is over, before Outworld actually won the tournament. So basically the exact same thing that Shang Tsung is trying to do in this new movie. So long story short, Raiden, not an elder god. But maybe in the lore that they're setting up in this movie, for all intents and purposes, they're going to call people of his power an elder god, which would be dumb.
It's like, why even use that term? Because normal people aren't going to know what that term is. And the only people who are going to know what that term is Mortal Kombat fans who know Raiden isn't an elder god.
Yeah, that's true. The term, that just using the term elder god is going to have absolutely no significance to anyone who doesn't already know what that means. And if you already knew what that means, you're going to be like, wait, he's not an elder god. So they just kind of misinterpreted the lore maybe or something when it came to that, which is totally possible because they're probably trying to go through a lot of different shit. And as far as Shang Tsung's kind of like whole evil gang that he had going, Cabal was cool. Cabal looked really good, I think. I liked his costume. I like that they give him his hook blades. Probably not the most practical weapon, but they look scary, and that's pretty much the most important thing in Mortal Kombat. What did you think of Cabal?
Cabal was amazing. He's definitely one of my favorite characters in this movie, even though he isn't there for long. His voice was pretty much the exact same as the one they used in Mortal Kombat 2011. Mortal Kombat 11. And yeah, I was a big fan of Cabal.
Yeah, his voice sounds good. Mileena looked pretty good too. I always say I don't understand why they wouldn't have went with the veil. They could have just had her wear a veil, and it would have looked fine. And then at the very end, when it came to when she fought, who did she fight?
She fought Sonya.
Yeah, when at the end of the movie when she fights Sonya, then you could have had her take it off, and it would have been like a big reveal, like, oh my god, look at her mouth, that's fucked. But instead, they kind of like. They just give her like the bloody why so serious smile, and then when at one point she like opens her mouth and then it opens like further, like her cheeks like rip apart, and then her teeth like become sharp, like because they kind of looked normal before, but then all of a sudden they become sharp. Not really a big deal, but like I said, I think it would have been cooler if she just kept the veil on for the whole movie and then revealed it at the end fight, maybe when she was like trying to eat her head off or something.
I thought it was a weird choice to introduce Mileena before you introduce Katana, as Mileena is a clone of Katana with Tarkatan DNA.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. And I actually heard someone, like, speaking of Tarkans, I heard someone say that maybe the fight with Goro should have been, like, maybe Baraka. Because Baraka, like, usually does always end up getting killed anyway. And that would have been probably at least a little more of, like, an even fight. Like, I mean, Baraka would still realistically fuck Cole up. He would have to. He's way more experienced of a fighter.
I think that would have been perfect with Cole's power because he has the batons to be able to block Baraka's blades. I think
that's true. Perfect. That would have been almost like a sword fight between them. That would have worked out really cool. One other thing, I feel like they didn't explicitly explain that the fights that were taking place at the end of the movie was not the actual tournament. And it was like basically a mock tournament they were having to get rid of these people that were breaking the rules. But I feel like at one point it never specifically said that, because when the fight started, I found myself sitting there going like, well, this can't be the tournament, is it? Like, this can't be it.
The whole movie, they're talking and mentioning the tournament, so it gets you confused at some points. Is this the tournament? Has it started?
I was like waiting and waiting. I was like, all right, when is like the tournament or when is the fighting gonna pop off? And then when it finally did pop off, I remember thinking to myself, like, I've already been watching this movie for what seems like a really long time. Like, there can't be that much left. And then, yeah, there isn't much left. It's like as soon as the action kind of starts to get good, the movie's kind of over before you know it. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, it just started to be the movie I wanted it to be, and then it ended. And just going back to Goro real quick, I was watching another guy's interview. I forgot to mention this, but he had actually timed from when the first time you see Goro to when Goro gets killed. So the first time you see him, I think he said it's like an hour or an hour and 5 minutes, we'll say. An hour and 5 minutes. That's when you first see his shadow. And then it's like an hour and 8 minutes you finally see the full Goro, which it's only like a couple minutes away. And then literally like 7 minutes later, he's dead. So from the time you first see Goro to the time that he's dead is only about 8 minutes. That's not long enough for Goro. You can't do Goro justice in 8 minutes.
No, he's way too cool of a character to just introduce and kill so quickly. But I definitely believe they're going to be bringing him back in the future.
I mean, yeah, they're inevitably going to bring him back, because why would they go through the effort to show you that he's one of the ones that's getting, like, absorbed into that shadow? I think that's pretty much mostly of what I wanted to talk about. Probably would just talk about the last fight scene, because that's pretty much, like, the best part of the movie, other than the first 7 minutes, probably, like, the last 7 minutes, maybe. All the fight between Scorpion and Sub-Zero was really good. All of the effects, like where he makes the ice wall and throws him through it. He does the ice clone, which is awesome. Typical ice sword stuff. He makes his ice sword, which is cool. I think he didn't. That was the first time he did that, right?
Yes, he did not do it up until that moment. I noticed that.
Yeah, he made the ice sword. That was really cool. And yeah, they basically just have a full-out Scorpion Sub-Zero match with Cole kind of just like being his, like, I don't know, his like tag team partner basically in like a WWE match. The whole first 7 minutes of the movie, when Scorpion ties the rope onto his like spearhead looking thing, the whole time I just really wanted him to say, "Get over here." And I kept wanting him to say it, and then it finally got to the end of the movie. It took the whole almost 2 hours in for him to finally say it, but he does finally say it, so at least they gave me that.
I have two little nitpicks again for Sub-Zero and Scorpion. I really wish when Hanzo comes back to Scorpion, he had white eyes, much like he does in the games. I think that would have been more...
I agree they missed a big opportunity with the white eyes.
It would have cemented him more as like a demon, what he is.
Yeah, rather than just giving him like shitty teeth and like bags under his eyes. Like, he pulls the mask off and his like teeth have like blackness to them, and like he kind of looks a little rough, but it's kind of like a weird direction to go when there's kind of already an established look for him as a revenant or as a undead, whatever you'd want to call it.
The other little nitpick I had is that nowhere in the movie does Sub-Zero rip out someone's spine and head. That's the original Sub-Zero's classic fatality.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to do that in the next movie.
I wish they did that to just some random monk that was outside Raiden's weird electric wall, and he was just there, and he's trying to run away, and then Sub-Zero does that to him.
Yeah, and all those final fights, like even the Sub-Zero and Cole fight, and Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Cole fight, they pick like some random like frozen
gym,
shitty metal room or yeah, the gym. It's like,
why not have it somewhere
yeah,
cooler?
Like again with so many locations to choose from, an odd choice. But I still honestly enjoyed the movie overall. Like there was a couple points where I was like, oh, come on. But for the most part, I was enjoying it. I was enjoying Kano. The fight scenes were awesome. The fatalities were awesome. All the Easter eggs were good. I think it did a pretty good fan service. Is it better than the first Mortal Kombat movie? No, I don't think so. I heard someone else put it this way, and I really liked how they described it, that the first movie just felt bigger. It just felt more... I don't know if put together is the right word, but it just felt bigger. It felt more grand. Like the tournament really felt like this really huge thing. And in this movie, you just didn't quite get that feeling. But I feel like they're going the right direction, though, with a couple tweaks and a couple little changes here and there. Like the next movie could be really good. It could be the best Mortal Kombat movie yet. Who knows?
I definitely agree that they could be on the right path to making the perfect Mortal Kombat movie with the right adjustments.
I think most Mortal Kombat fans probably feel the same way, that is it the best movie? No. But did you enjoy it and want more of it? Yeah. So that's pretty much my review, our review, I guess, and kind of just overlook of the movie. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, leave a like. If there's anything you noticed in the movie that we left out, or any little Easter eggs you think that no one else has noticed, please leave it in the comments, because I would love to see those. Might do more movie reviews in the future. Not really too sure about it, though. I just know that I really wanted to do this one because Mortal Kombat's something that me and my brother have played together for a really long time. We really enjoy Mortal Kombat, so it's something that we could both talk about, that we'd have a bit of background knowledge. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed.
Goodbye.